Have a seat.
Joe's my old neighbor. That's what he didn't tell me.
It's funny. We were neighbors in Westerville. Brad was in the Army at the time. I just got out of the Army. We ended up living next door to one another, became good friends, and I don't know, man. It's just kind of crazy how life just puts people in your path in the right place at the right time.
You didn't mention the most important thing. I went to West Point for my undergrad, but for my grad school, I went to Ohio State.
OH.
So,
there you go.
I'm very proud of that.
You should be. Yeah, so, Brad had this crazy idea back, even at that time. Brad had this crazy idea of a live streaming platform. And we were kicking the idea, he was kicking the idea to me, and he's telling me a little bit about it. And then, let me just show a video real quick.
What you guys are doing, you're really revolutionized. My background is a Fox Network, ABC, NBC. I worked all of them, but I'm now online, and I love what you guys are doing. You're making it more interactive. How did you come up with this?
Well, it wasn't just me that came up with it. It started with a buddy of mine from West Point, a guy named John Hamm, and myself, and our third co-founder, Dr. Gila Farrer. And how it originally started is we were Army veterans. We were with the West Point, we were in the Army, and we wanted a way to help our buddies overseas who are deployed to be able to call home and talk to all their family. Because when you're deployed, you're making trade-offs. You don't have time to call my mom. You don't have time to call my wife. You don't have time to call my grandma. And you don't have time to call everybody. And so we wanted a way that they could call everyone at the same time, speak with everyone. They could see you and make sure you're okay. And obviously since then we've taken the platform in a lot of different directions: sports, music. That's how it originally started.
You've changed a little bit since then, Brad.
I didn't know you were going to show that video, but a little backstory. I actually had the flu there, and we had a big event at South by Southwest in Austin, and so I was hurting bad. But
you look good, man. Yeah. And now you got this going on, so yeah, it's good. Well, so I think all great ideas kind of come from a need, a void that needs to be filled, and Ustream certainly was that. As you explained in the video, there was a need there. And what I love about what you did is it wasn't a selfish need. It was a need to serve others. And so I got to know, when did Ustream come? Because that video clip was from 2010 at South by. When did it come, from an idea into a reality?
So for those that don't know, Ustream was a live broadcasting platform that ultimately we sold to IBM, and now live streaming is very common, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or whatever the newest thing is. And so the original idea came from a bunch of different sources that we were processing, but everything from the fact that you couldn't watch the Super Bowl online. I mean, when we were neighbors, I won't say we pirated UFC streams, but we might have watched with the special box that allowed us to watch it because we were dirt poor at the time, all the way to my brother was in a rock and roll band. He had fans all over the world, and you couldn't watch them. You couldn't experience that live connection. There's something really special about live video, in my opinion, in terms of engagement. Like you guys, we had very highly engaged audiences. And now you see it everywhere, whether it's Twitch, which I never would have thought would be a big thing that everyone's doing, to watching a wedding on the internet. This weekend on the flight up here, I watched the Cowboys football game on the flight. It's permeated everything. Some of that's some of our old technology. A lot of it's new technology. So it came from all of these experiences, including the military, which I was sort of trying to describe in there, which was, being a West Point grad. I graduated West Point in June of '01, so right before 9/11. The next 5 years were obviously very crazy. I could see both myself and my friends that were lost connection with home. Skype had just started coming on. There wasn't really a way to let people know what you were doing, at least through an interactive live video thing. That's how we started and evolved into other directions, obviously.
Yeah, it's such a big undertaking at that time where technology really hadn't caught up with you. I imagine there were a lot of glitches.
Tons of glitches, tons of mistakes. We were the first to do live broadcasting on the iPhone, like in terms of viewing. I think the very first time it ever happened was with the Taylor Swift, like in her home interaction, which again, now people take this for granted, but at the time it was like, oh my God, I'm watching Taylor Swift and she's just sitting there actually what's happening in her house, which was a big deal. And then we were the first to do broadcasting on the phone. And then remember, we did lots of stuff. Again, this stuff has all become mainstream now, but we did Obama's inauguration, first live stream to 1 million people. And then all the way to the weird stuff, like when Charlie Sheen went crazy, that was actually on Ustream and Twitter as well. And a little inside story, I actually paid for it, and it was all fake, believe it or not. Although he's weird. That is a true story. The Charlie Sheen thing was actually
You mean show
scripted.
business is not all real?
It was totally scripted.
Wow.
Yep, I paid for it. But.
That's crazy, man. So what's funny is I'll remember this video. I can't remember how you got it to me, but I think it was actually streamed by another streamer. So now we pull our phone out, right, and we record whatever's around us. Brad sends me a video of a backpack with a laptop in it and an air card and a camera on a wire coming out of a USB port or something, following, like trying to paparazzi celebrities in LA.
Yeah. So before the iPhones could handle it, and before 3G had evolved to LTE and soon to be 5G, it was we had to be a little bit more creative how we got the signal out. And I mean, my brother was in a band. I can remember he was in a kind of a pretty hardcore rock band, which wasn't really my style, but you know, I was supporting him, whatever. And so I was in the mosh pit testing the technology. I talked to my co-founder, and we were holding like the old school cameras, and that's how it started. And I'm glad I did. And it started from a whole lot of experiences that happened early on.
So as you're traveling this journey and overcoming obstacles as you go, what would you say the greatest obstacle you had to overcome would have been?
I mean, if I'm going to speak generically from a startup standpoint and being an entrepreneur, there's many obstacles. These things don't usually go, at least in that direction for you guys, go like that. It's usually a stair step, and sometimes you kind of go down, you kind of go back up. I think it's the will to just continue. I went to Ohio State, and there was a guy named, I'll never forget the guy's name, I only met him once, a guy named Greg Ruff. I don't know if he still lives in Columbus or not, but I sat next to him on a plane, and he was an entrepreneur, and he said, I asked him before I started anything, I said, well, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give me as an entrepreneur? And the guy told me, he said, being an entrepreneur is kind of like a basketball game. You're going to shoot, and you're going to miss. You're going to shoot, and you're going to miss. But the only way you really lose is if you quit shooting. And so eventually, if you keep shooting, you're going to make a basket. And I almost quit probably God knows how many times from Ustream, or felt like we didn't have anything, or maybe this would never ever be anything. The direction, like the whole concept of live streaming, maybe there was nothing here, and you just sort of have to will the universe through those periods and just keep going. And again, the only way you fail is if you quit. So
Lots of sacrifice too. Lots of time away from the family.
yeah, I mean it's a lifestyle. Being an entrepreneur, and I've got a new company now, which I know we're going to talk about. I've got several companies now, but it's a lifestyle. If you want to go work at a big company, go do that, which is nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you should know, eyes wide open, what you're getting yourself into. It's a lifestyle. It is stressful, and there's lots of overnight successes that took 10 or 15 years.
Right. That's the hustle that people don't see. They see the results of the hustle. So that's your challenges. What would you say your greatest victory with Ustream, particularly?
I went to West Point, and I very much value leadership, and I think leadership and management are different. But if I'm good at anything, we were talking about this at lunch today, I think I'm good at building teams. So while the outcome, we sold for a lot of money, I don't ever have to work again. I grew up as just a kid from Granbury, Texas. My parents never even went to college. My dad was a high school dropout, and great parents, but I didn't come from wealth by any means. But my greatest achievement, if I had to pick, and it took a long time to get there, was ultimately the thing I feel the most I'm proud about is the fact that the management team that I ultimately built, and how the team operated, and the culture we built was something that I was very proud of. And that process of building a team that's highly effective, that trusts one another, that can move very quickly, and just operates very effectively is I think pretty easily my best achievement.
That's awesome. And you touched on something little there, but it's a big deal, and it's a big reason why I invited you to be on this stage with us today. Is you could bring in someone who you could bring in a Bill Gates to some things. You can bring in Zuckerberg. You can bring in some of these big names, and maybe some of them are just like freaks of nature, like they're they're just a different level, right? And this is a friend of mine who's a neighbor, and regular dudes wearing camo and just doing some really cool stuff. So I'm proud of you for that success with Ustream. And I think that if anybody is kind of traveling the journey that Brad just explained with Ustream, just keep doing that, because you don't have to have all this independent wealth in order to get something started. I mean, you just have to have what Brad had, which is a great idea, a lot of hustle, be willing to put in the hustle.
I'll say one thing, I speak at a ton of conferences and talk to entrepreneurs and people who want to start companies all over the world or have small business. And the number one obstacle I always hear is people have a great idea, they don't just do it.
Yeah.
I left my wife and kids with a brand new baby, left her in Texas and went to Silicon Valley. So there's I'm not recommending that, but if you want to win, if you want to be successful, you just got to start and learn and sort of navigate. Again, I'm from West Point, so I use a lot of Army analogies, but they used to tell us all the time at West Point, it's burned in our brain, that in the absence of orders, charge. And there's sort of something to that, like sometimes you just got to go and figure it out. And one of my latest companies is a perfect example of that. Momentum builds upon momentum, and you learn by doing, you don't learn by talking. So just to go do something.
I don't know if I thought this up or I read it somewhere, but if you want to achieve the things that no one else is achieving, you have to do the things that no one else is doing. And there's a lot of truth in that. So we've discussed Ustream a little bit. I know that you're invested. You touched on this too. You're invested in a whole lot of other things. What are some of the things that you're invested in now that you've got your Ustream money and you're on other ventures?
I'm in investing wise. I kind of categorize investing, which is mean I'm not that involved, or if at all.
Yeah.
And then there's I'm a partner in some things that I'm involved with, some of them more than others, and there's one I actually run. Investing wise, I'm an investor in everything from Madison Reed, which is that at-home women's hair coloring, to a really cool company I kind of like called Inkbox. I never got a tattoo, but they do at-home henna tattoos. To Stance, which is an e-commerce company. I was an investor in Square, which everyone I'm sure knows Square. So I'm an investor in probably 40 different companies of various stages. I'm an investor in a company called Octane.ai, which is they want to take chat and add an intelligent layer and allow it to be an automated way to do customer service and communicate with your customer, mostly on Facebook. So I'm in a bunch of different stuff. And then on the partnership side, where I'm more involved, those are more like passive investments. We have a sports agency called Robert Jones Black Legacy Management, which my partner is Robert Jones Black. He's the grandson of Bobby Jones, who was a real famous golfer. And what we're trying to do is take legacy brands like Bobby Jones, anybody play golf? Know who Bobby Jones is? A little bit? No? Okay, well, never mind. All right, but he founded the Masters and Augusta National. His shirts are sold in every pro shop. He's dead. He died. I don't know when he died, but he died a long time ago. But long story short, the family had made all this money. They didn't have a foundation. They didn't have any products. So we're trying to remonetize known legacy brands and then add a foundation element. So anything that we do has to help the foundation. So Bobby Jones died of a disease called Chiari-cerebral myelin, which is a neurodegenerative disease, kind of like ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, that kills 4 million people a year. There's no cure for it. It actually affects mostly kids, even though Bobby Jones lived through it to the 60s with it. So we have a foundation and we have a product. And since then, we've signed Evander Holyfield, also, who I'm sure somebody here knows who he is, and then Richard Petty as well. And so it's sort of, again, you kind of get the sense of guys who haven't maybe monetized or have messed up, in some cases, their monetization. So we're trying to license and productize those things. Then I've got a couple other ones. My biggest one, though, is the company I started with my father called Linear Labs. which we can talk about if you
I got a video about that.
show it.
Watch a video about Linear Labs.
So the idea was, can we do a father-son project, spend some time together, we'll put some resources towards it, and sometimes two guys in a garage change the world, and sometimes it happens to be a father and a son.
Well, what we call it is a 4-rotor circumferential flux permanent magnet motor. It's a made-up term that describes it fairly well.
Right.
If you look at our diagrams on the website, you'll see that circumferentially the flux surrounds it. Okay? And that's the major difference. We also, as you can see here, you can see the 4 rotors that are involved: side rotors, inner rotor, outer rotor.
We'd go from a old-timey windmill
Right.
power generation solution for Africa, and end up as one of the executives from one of these companies told me, they believe that this motor will be in every electric vehicle in the world. Most big ideas, most big game-changing innovations don't come out of the GEs of the world or the IBMs of the world. They just don't. They come out of startups. They come out of guys in a garage who are lifetime learners, who have a curiosity, who are tinkerers, and a lot of times come from a background that's not even from the space they're working on.
It's got to be special working with your dad like that, huh?
Sometimes. So my dad's this Da Vinci-esque guy, and we should be further along, but it took me a long time to come to the realization that my dad had invented something. So long story short, my dad's an electrical engineer by trade. He did a lot of work in the nuclear power industry, designed a lot of the electrical systems for nuclear power, which is not obviously relevant anymore in the United States, unfortunately. But he made a discovery, and it's unequivocal, we believe now, that our motors, he created a whole new class of electric motors and generators, which, you know, as a software guy, you might think, how in the world did he go from Ustream to that? Obviously, my dad invented it, helped. The other big thing is, at the end of the day, building a company is building a company. It's the same things. And I've gotten much more knowledgeable about the space, but these motors and these generators will be in every electric car over time, every scooter, every robot, every air conditioner in the world. And the defining characteristic is it produces torque and uses a lot less energy for that torque, which means it's smarter in its utilization. You know, and I'm very passionate about climate change. I'm very passionate about just, man, if we can do it smarter, cleaner, better, why wouldn't we? You know, and still build a business. And take air conditioners for an example. There's 2.8 billion people that live in the hottest parts of the world. And in those parts of the world, there happen to be a rising middle class. And the first thing a middle class person wants is an air conditioner. And the global grid, fundamentally, if you look at the calculations, cannot handle what's about to happen on a global scale. It's a looming disaster. Parts of Nigeria have electricity for 8 hours a day. Parts of Ghana for 8 hours a day, rolling blackouts. And as the heat continues to rise, as the seasons change, we're going to have to resort to dirtier forms of energy to meet the global energy demand. Renewables just cannot come online fast enough. And so I believe at my soul, while I love Ustream, and I'm very proud of that experience and that for my team and for what we were doing for video and transparency and all that, this is fundamentally my calling. I honestly believe we are a key part of helping the world overcome some of the challenges of the next 40 years. And it's through our motors and our generators. It's unequivocal. I don't want to go into technical details, but 50% of the world's electricity passes through some sort of electric motor. And so if you can make them better, you can reduce global energy demand or delay global energy demand as renewables come online, or we invent nuclear fusion or whatever. I couldn't be more excited. And my belief at its core is very deep. And we're based in Fort Worth, Texas. We've raised a lot of money from a lot of impressive investors. And I hate to overstate it, but I honestly believe we're part of the equation that's trying to do some things to save the world. And that's a pretty powerful motivator.
Service again. service again. You said you don't have to work again, and yet this is a pretty major undertaking, and to do that for a greater good, that's amazing. It's amazing stuff. Do you see a day where, like, electric motors will be everything? There will no longer be gas motors or anything like that?
Yes and no. I mean, we're entering what I'm calling the electrification 2.0. Electricity's been around forever. But the last time I checked, you can't really take sunlight and wind and turn it into gasoline. So it sort of has to be electric if we want to go cleaner. Nuclear power doesn't turn into gasoline. It turns into these things turn into electricity. And this next wave of electrification is defined. The biggest thing that's most obvious to everybody is electric cars, mobility, mobile applications. I mean, what I know is about to happen, just having talking to a lot of these companies, is pretty incredible. Whether it's air taxis from Uber, whether it's autonomous cars that are like sleeping cars that can take you across the country, or pizza delivery cars, or drones, or whatever. It's a really, really exciting time, and we're also entering the fourth industrial revolution, which is defined as leveraging a lot of this data and interconnectedness of devices. And so factories can be more efficient and smarter. I mean, I'm setting up a global network of factories across the country to build our electric motors, and many of them will be dark, or could be dark, which is awesome in terms of productivity, which is scary in terms of what's going to happen with future jobs in many locations. And so, again, I don't want to make it a political discussion, but we've got some societal challenges around all this stuff that it's sort of, we need both to happen in order to, we got to fix both of these things, as it happens. I think gasoline doesn't go away anytime soon. I'm not an anti-petroleum or petrochemical person. Like, I mean, plastic and everything else which is super important to a certain extent. I just don't think we can burn dead dinosaurs and sea creatures for the rest of our lives. And at some point that runs out. And I go back to, if we can do it cleaner, why not? We have to live in this village, but if we're bombing it all the time, we still got to live in it. So I feel passionate about the problem. I think there creates other set of challenges that we'll have to solve as well. But we're entering some very exciting times, undoubtedly.
So I got to ask, what was the motivator, the key motor, the thing that, because your dad had been working on this motor for a long time. What was the thing that hooked you in? Was it like, hey, well, I don't have to do this Ustream thing anymore. I've got time. I just want to tinker around with my dad. Or was it that, or did you just, I mean, what sold you on this, on this mission here?
I mean, you want the honest answer? My dad had a heart attack, almost died. So in October of this year, so I owned the company, and I was putting money towards it, and I had other people running it. And October of last year, my dad had a massive heart attack, and he should be dead, frankly. He got him to the hospital, and they said, no, we don't really think you're having a heart attack. You should have had chest pain. And long story short, a kid that grew up in my town, my dad coached soccer. One of my good friends growing up was the ER nurse that was checking him in. So they're shooting the bull. And as the ER doctor came in to talk to him, he had a massive heart attack, went unconscious right in front of him, right with my mom sitting beside him, just waiting in the waiting room. They shocked him 20 times, worked on him for an hour, and by the grace of God, somehow it saved him. He's fine now, or seems fine. But that moment sort of made me reflect a little bit about what my purpose was. I think, when it's sort of like winning the lotto, not that it wasn't through a lot of hard work, but when you have a lot of money dropped into your lap, there was an element of, I won't say I was lost, but I was like reevaluating my life and, just what was important to me. And so, that was a pretty clear sign that I need to do something. And so at that point I decided to take over the company, become CEO, raise a bunch of money, scale the team. We'll probably do 1 million motors next year. Not just motors, they're smart motors, so they're highly intelligent with a really advanced software layer. I think it's a noble. It's obviously a big market opportunity, and it's a big idea. And if I can pull it off, I think it's one that I'd be very proud of, and make my dad proud as well.
That's awesome. Hey, thanks for being honest and transparent and share that story with us. Appreciate that. That's awesome. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And if you could just leave all the entrepreneurs out there with one piece of sage advice, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, the entrepreneurial journey is not for the faint of heart. I mean, not everyone's probably meant to be an entrepreneur. But if you decide to do it, I mean, intestinal fortitude, that willingness to not quit is a key trait I've seen consistently across entrepreneurs. And just remember, I mean, when you're an entrepreneur and you got a business partner, which is I think really important if you can find the right person. And for those who don't, I mean, it's lonely at the top, even for probably for you. And being lonely at the top means there's certain things you can't tell everybody. There's no one understands that experience except for other entrepreneurs. It's a very real thing. And the mind game, your own mind can play games on you. Get self-doubt, and you just have to grind and just throw yourself out there and overcome it. I mean, it is a tough thing, and go in eyes wide open that things will be bad at times, things will screw up at times. You should tell your family. This is like not one thing, by the way. This is like a lot of things I'm rambling, but it is a process, and the process inevitably requires failure and bad moments. And how you exit those moments is ultimately whether you become successful or you ultimately do not survive as a company. So it is no company that I've ever heard in my life goes like this, and it's perfect.
Right.
I mean, Facebook fired their COO early days for doing drugs, and people don't actually remember that. So every company goes through some very tumultuous times, and it's the response to that I think is very key.
Yeah, that's key because, I'm a member of the John Maxwell team, and that's right in line with his advice about failing forward.
Yeah.
You're going to shoot a lot more times than you hit, and you got to be willing to fail, willing to learn from it, and grow from it, right? So thanks for sharing that with us. Thanks for your time. Brad's going to be at the cocktail reception. If you got questions for him, just hang out. He'll be here at dinner tonight too. So, Brad, thanks so much for your time today, man. Appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you.
Head out this way?
You go out this way. Yeah.